All right. Good morning. Good morning. Thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of LearnBiz The Podcast. I am Sandy B. Law. I'm here with the lovely Lisa K. Crawford. Hey, Lisa.
Hey, Sandy. Good morning. Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone's off to the start of a great day. How are you doing, Miss Beautiful Sandy? How's Paris?
Hey, Paris was about a week ago. Right now, I'm in
Oh,
another city to be
okay.
disclosed after I leave it. I'm enjoying my time here. It's been a very different pace
Yes,
for me. So I'm definitely having a good time.
absolutely. Thank you for sharing all the wonderful pictures.
Absolutely. And I'm actually going to put together a series of videos to kind of, chronicle this whole experience for those that may decide sometime in the near future to take this trip. There's
Absolutely.
some things we Americans need to learn to adjust with.
Yeah. There you go.
All right. So today we're going to do a Black news mix, but we're going to focus on one particular topic because, Lisa and I are always having conversations about different business topics and trying to come up with ways to address different issues. And so we have an article that we're presenting today. Not an article, I'm sorry. We have a video that we're presenting today that to me and Lisa really hits some core business concepts and things that may go wrong when we go into business, especially if we go into business with others, right? Because Lisa and I both know, like, you never know what's going to happen in business, right, Lisa? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
No, you're right about that. You just never know. You take chances sometime. You may hit it off socially and feel a vibe like you think that you can carry that far into the future into business. So, and it doesn't always go well. I think you've been there and I've been there. We could probably write a book about it, huh?
That's next on our list. Our list is
Right?
long. Good morning, Rigo. Thank you so much. We always appreciate your support here
Yeah.
at LearnBiz The Podcast.
Good morning,
Um,
Rigo.
But guys, we're just going to do a little video review today. And we're going to be talking about a couple of different things. One is the Pivot Podcast, which is composed of two former athletes, actually three former athletes, but two of which were part of the podcast called I Am Athlete. And they had a big split early on in this year. And it was weird because that podcast has been making some great strides. But now there's a new podcast called the Pivot Podcast, making even more strides. So we're going to kind of do some commentary as Lisa and I go through this video. So let me get that on the screen for us. And it's already queued up and ready for us to chat about it.
All right.
So here we go.
Yes, man. Because my head crazy. You said easing God out. That's why the pivot gonna be successful. That's why we're here with you today. We don't have egos. We're not we don't. We're not narcissistic. No, I was gonna get it right.
So, here's the first concept in business, Lisa, that you and I talk about a lot. It's taking yourself out of the situation, because many times we operate under the me idea. It's about me.
Yes.
And if you're going to go into business, especially if you're going to do a service business, especially if you're going to do a business where you're selling products, you have to parse yourself out of the conversation many times because there's a goal, right? What's the goal for you, Lisa, when you think about business and trying to not be narcissistic?
Well, I mean, you have to think about the big picture, and if you have a team, then you have to think like that in terms of the team approach and everybody moving the ball forward and trying to get to the next goal. I just think it's very important. I think language is very important when you have people working around you. Is that what you're kind of getting at there?
Yeah, language matters. And it's important sometimes as we think about things that happen in the business to think about it, outside of ourselves, right? We have to think about what's the goal of the group or the effort that we're trying to accomplish. So that's where they're starting off the conversation, and they're going to go ahead and lean into this idea of what happened to the podcast they were on previously.
All right.
No, let me not appreciate it, but I got it. But we're not narcissists.
Yeah. I got it, motherfucker.
I just got it. don't try me, dog. But no, seriously, man, I think that we're selfless. You know, we go and we just do what we do, and that's why we're here. And truthfully, and I say this without being messy, that's not why we're over there. You know what I mean?
Can we talk about it?
It's up to you. This is your show. I'm just telling you why we're here.
We need to talk about it because I met you in one way, but I saw you on a platform that wasn't the pivot. It was I Am Athlete, right? And I'm not gonna bash nobody. I'm cool with D Marsh. He actually kind of counseled me in doing what I'm doing to this day. But at the same time, there's a message in that people need to know. Why didn't it work out? How did Ryan Clark, replace a figure that wasn't normally there 2 to 3 years ago?
I can say this: Ryan didn't replace a figure. Ryan is here because Ryan is here for who he is. Mm-hmm. And I can say this also with whatever we did on the other side. This is my opinion, and it ain't hate. This is my 1,000% me.
Yes, sir.
Now, I felt like we need a little pause here, right?
Okay.
Because what do you think about what they're talking about right now, Lisa? Because they're hitting some things that I appreciate, which is we're not going to try to bash the situation that we were in before.
Yeah, whatever it is, they're totally dancing around it in a real skillful way. Yeah. Maybe it's all those ballerina classes, I don't know, but but they're very skillful and they're choosing their words very carefully. Like they're getting into something, yeah, but they're just not bum rushing the topic. Like they're really thinking about their words.
Yeah, that's facts. So I appreciate what they're doing right now because I don't like the bashing concept when things just don't work out. I think we should really be able to have a conversation.
True.
No hate and no funny shit. I believe Ryan is a bigger asset for us than anybody that was ever on the other platform. Mm-hmm. That's just my thought.
When you say us, who is us?
For the pivot.
Okay.
And what we're doing. Mm-hmm. This is our thing, and and I always tell people Ryan's amazing on his day job, mm-hmm. which is ESPN, obviously,
right.
But he's equally as great here on the pivot.
Right.
And I'll say that tenfold over and over and over. Mm-hmm. So when you say replace, I don't like to look at it that way, mm-hmm. because we are blessed and fortunate to have Ryan rock with us, and truthfully, we talk about ego. It was big egos on that side. I've never been that way, you know me.
Right.
Never been a narcissist, right? And it was just a moment where the business would never button up, and sometimes that happens.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when we think about our roles in business and the fact that there are so many layers to starting a business and getting a business underway, he hit on something important just now. The business wasn't buttoned up. And I almost feel like in many ways, when things kind of fall apart is because folks are either not on the same page. Maybe they don't have the same vision of where they see the business going. Maybe they don't have the same faith in the business. Maybe they're just not into it the way the other person is, or maybe they have some different aspirations, but that's an important piece of establishing your position as an entrepreneur is figuring out what page you're on. And then if you decide to, sync forces, you got to be able to make sure that the other person is down for the count, right? Down to head in the direction that you are.
That's true, because if you think about it, if you have two boss types coming together to form a business, those two individuals are used to being bosses and running everything. So when you begin to work together with another person that's just like that, I mean, that's where that give and take comes in. That, you work those roles. Like today, I'm on the receiving end. I'm listening and learning from my partner. Tomorrow, I'll be able to share about something more that I know.
Right.
As long as that give and take and that balance and ego doesn't get in the way, things can keep rocking and rolling. I think what happens is that you have people that want to remain in that chief role
Right.
Nobody wants to be, maybe this analogy is not that great anymore, but you talk about the Indian and the Chiefs, but that kind of concept, or the manager and I guess the underling, everybody wants to be on top or top dog. And I
Yeah.
think that's what happens a lot of times in management with partners.
Yeah, and in this position, I used to watch I Am Athlete. I probably watch the Pivot more, and I think it's just because I gravitate towards the personalities on the Pivot more. But there was such a vibe for a very long period of time, and then you started to see little fragments of things that were just going left field. And I think we're hearing now the actual backstory of what's going on. So let's see what else he has to say.
Okay.
But I know you, and I know if that were a situation, if we all started this Funky Friday together,
Right.
You would look at it and say, all right, I know what my people bring to the table.
Right.
Like you just
It's
mentioned a
not
second ago,
showing on
you got to
the.
know who are your assets and who are liabilities.
sorry.
You got to know
Okay.
who's
Forgot
helping
to
you
click
be
it.
great
Mhm.
as a quarterback. You're going to go out there and you're going to fight for the Panthers, for purposes of just using any team to say, I need Steve Smith to be paid XYZ. I'm going to fight for him,
Mhm.
right? Because I know he's going to help me. He's
Right.
going to help us. That wasn't the case.
Mm.
It became
One-dimensional.
me. And there's some things that are out there that makes it seem like the podcast was valued at this and we weren't happy with, what we were getting, which is, I guess, a cut. None of that was ever spoke about.
Mhm.
That was never, ever talked about.
So
This
is-
$11 million, this other, that's all bullshit at the end of the day.
So you felt like you had to make a better decision in the career that was healthier for you as a person.
The decision that was made was on business, this ain't adding up and this don't make sense. And
Lisa, you already laughing, so you got to tell us what you found funny so far, because you're like, wait a minute.
What is cracking me up is the part that, what mattered to me in business that this don't add up and this don't make sense. That's what the real problem is.
Look,
Has nothing to
another
do with-
nugget for all entrepreneurs. If it don't add up and it don't make no sense,
It ain't gonna work out.
It ain't gonna work out. It's a problem. So I like how Lisa went into a full giggle. I'm like, what is so funny over there? What is happening?
I love it. Like what I realize is that this ain't gonna work out and this don't make sense.
I can't. Let me go back and play. I can't deal with Lisa today.
That's hilarious.
Oh my god.
for the division to pivot itself without us being talked to,
Mhm.
because it was just a podcast.
Yes.
But somehow it became, a marketing arm for said business.
Mhm.
And that wasn't really what it was deemed to be at the very beginning. It was, let's do a podcast. I bet. And then we got good at it. People, start tapping in and checking us out.
Mhm.
And then it grew. And then when you have certain, individuals that would say, damn, this could be lucrative. I'm gonna take all of this.
Mm.
Right? So that's how it happened. But we kept going to the table and
What's your thoughts, Lisa? What's
Wait
your
a
thoughts?
minute, wait a minute, Sandy. The subtleness has left the room.
Yeah.
There is no more subtle here.
But the interesting part is it's not an attack, right? He's
No, it's
speaking from his perspective, what his thought is. And I love that he's just not there's certain words that he could probably use that he's not using, right?
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
really just focusing on the issue at hand, which is from, of course, his perspective. And I think we probably need to do a thing on the I Am Athlete side, because he actually had a conversation about this as well.
Okay, well, that would be good. But let me tell you something what's beautiful about these brothers is like they're using words and they're talking and they're
Yes.
articulating their thoughts, and every other word is not SHIT or MF.
this.
I'm like, these brothers are just talking their business. It's
Yeah.
making sense. We're listening. I
Yeah.
understand where he's coming from. And what had happened was, I believe, Sandy, is that podcast started off being fun. And the angle
Yes.
must not have been strictly business from the beginning, but the camaraderie, the brotherhood, whatever you want to call it. And all of a sudden, that sucker stopped making some money.
Yeah.
And that's when things changed.
Right. And I think the perspectives of each individual on the podcast, as it was three of them, became like, I mean, y'all making money. Shouldn't we all be making money? Because we're all putting into this thing that is the podcast. And one of the things that he just alluded to is he was like, you know, the guy from I Am Athlete, Brandon Marshall, has a company called House of Athlete. And you started to see the connection between I Am Athlete and House of Athlete. It was almost as if like I Am Athlete was the promoter for House of Athlete, his other business. And but what Brandon Marshall will say when he spoke on his show, he was talking about, well, you know, I'm promoting my thing. You all could have promoted your thing. But it's like, but if it's not, if there's a conversation that's not had about how that plays out, or the numbers aren't addressed, it really doesn't work. It just means everybody's doing their own thing. You know,
Right,
so
right. And I can understand why then some who are a part of it begin to feel uncomfortable
yeah,
because they begin to feel like, wait, there's not necessarily an even playing field, or we're not all on the same page.
right.
It's kind of like some people are taking advantage of the circumstances and making more out of it than others. And
Yeah.
yeah, I can see how that causes some discomfort among some.
Yeah, I mean, it's a challenge. We're already at our mark, but I'm going to play
Okay.
just a few more moments of this and then we'll do a little wrap up.
Okay.
Me personally, I'm not going to speak for Chan, but me personally, from inception to the point where it all broke up, it was well noted and known that all of my sweat equity, talent fee, everything's been rolled back into the pot. So from the beginning to the very end, if you put dollars in, my dollars match your dollars side by side.
Yes, sir.
Because that's sweat. But at the end of the day, if this is let's just say if it's $1 million valuation on the podcast, and if I put in, you know, let's just say 50 grand.
Right.
And if you put in, let's say 100 grand, mathematically, I should have a third ownership.
Right. It's a partnership.
Right?
That's a partnership.
Not revenue split, not all this
Yeah,
other bullshit, but from not profit sharing, from equity ownership.
Correct.
That's easy math, not 5%. It's more like 27%.
Yes, sir.
So that's why I'm here with the pivot. And we weren't going to do another podcast. We just
Well, there you have it. So
there you have it.
Hey, Doug. Good morning, Doug. Thank you for tuning in.
Good morning.
We are talking this morning about the business, and we're really using an example of the podcast, I Am Athlete versus the Pivot podcast. If you are familiar at all with these two podcasts, you'll know that they were started by former NFL athletes. The I Am Athlete podcast was started by Brandon Marshall, Fred Taylor, Channing Crowder, and then they split. So now we have the Pivot podcast with Fred Taylor, Channing Crowder, and oh my gosh, I always forget the third guy's name. Ryan Clark, I believe, is the third guy's name. And so Fred Taylor has just been breaking down the business concepts that wasn't that. What did he say, Lisa? That wasn't that enough?
You know what? You know, the money ain't right. That's what we talking about. The business and the money ain't right. See, I don't forgot my quote, but yeah. The thing is that I see that there's another issue versus splitting income versus entity ownership.
Yes.
So
equity
ownership in the business itself versus how much money you make from the podcast. Those are two different things.
Yes. And you can't tell someone that they're going to get a fraction of sorts or get some profit sharing or share revenues or whatever when if you're starting something together, then that's what it is. That means each of you has an ownership interest. But here's the problem. He said very early on, they didn't iron out the business before this started. They started the podcast. It was fun. It was, them letting loose during COVID. They started during COVID and they just became so successful because you got to think about it. There are a lot of lanes for podcasts, but this particular lane was a different one. NFL athletes, former NFL athletes, who were successful relative to their particular time, who are now interviewing other athletes,
right?
And talking about the finances, talking about the challenges, talking about family and relationships and emotions and mental health. it's not something that you see often in the podcast space,
That's
especially on
true.
YouTube.
That's true.
And they're Black male athletes, right?
Yes,
So,
yes.
it was an untapped thing and they really lit up like wildfire. So,
I think it's very interesting, but that just goes to show you that, sometimes you don't discover issues or things don't come up. If you don't have the vision to see it ahead of time, you have
Right.
to wait until you're up on it, and then you just have to deal with it. But then you may have crossroads and things may blow up right there.
Yeah.
But if you can get some type of business advisor or a mentor to let you know that, hey, these are going to be the issues that generally will creep up or rise, then you can begin to deal with those things ahead of the curve. And
Right.
so that's the wiser course, but it's not always reality.
Absolute. So, guys, obviously we're going to have to extend this conversation, and we're probably going to have to pull that footage from the I Am Athlete conversation about this very topic to see what they had to say, and maybe we can see, what the comparison is. But I'm sure that, there's three sides to every story: your side, and the truth.
And the truth.
So it is what it is. But guys, we thank you so much. We always appreciate you for tuning in to
Yes.
LearnBiz the podcast.
Thank you.
We are here to share, the Black business updates and help you guys be better entrepreneurs and in our quest to just make more money and be more profitable and successful.
Yes,
So hope you guys have a happy Friday and enjoy your weekend.
definitely. We'll talk to you next week.
Until next week. Bye, Lisa.
See you guys.
Bye.
Take care, Cindy. Au revoir.
Au revoir.